There was a moment early in my current D&D campaign where one of the players was behaving in a manner contrary to the well-being of the party. Nails, the team's sorcerer, played by my friend Tom, was suddenly exhibiting godlike powers, and as his power grew, his humanity evaporated. At one point, Nails grew impatient with an NPC, the wizard Butts, and the NPC exploded. No spell was cast. There was no rule in the player's handbook that granted a sorcerer this power. He just did it. One of the other players, Anna, wanted Tom to just explain what was happening with his character. When Tom offered no explanation, Anna got frustrated. She was slowly realizing that Tom was not on their side. She even said, "This sucks. What is going on?" She was frustrated, but she was slowly realizing, along with the rest of the party, that part of their current adventure, one of the challenges they had to solve, was what to do about Nails. I think maybe the biggest problem through all this was the fact that the players, many of whom were new, had a hard time contextualizing their reactions in character. Having been through all this once, I don't think they'd have that same problem again. It's one of the more dramatic things that's happened in the campaign. It was crazy. It was cool. It was fun. It was memorable. The players had to figure out, how do we stop Nails? And they had a few different tools they could use and good ideas, and it played out in a way that was close to what I expected, but with some interesting twists. I was able to do this highly narrative, dramatic plotline because I collaborated with Tom. Tom originally had an entirely different character in mind, Boots. But I said, hey, go watch the original series Star Trek episode Where No Man Has Gone Before and tell me what you think. He watched it that day and reported back that it was cool. And I said, how about we do that? Tom hadn't really played D&D before, and so he was excited at the possibility that the hobby could contain such nonsense. He didn't know, in other words, how weird and non-standard this is. I explained it would mean creating an entire fake character. I was collaborating with Tom apart from the other players. I was sort of bringing him behind the DM screen with me on purpose to create a dramatic moment that probably couldn't have happened any other way. Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. You know, we've covered a lot of ground in the Running the Game series, and I'm always thinking about what kind of advice to give new DMs. But I think this counts very much as next level DM techniques, not something you want to try your first time running because it relies on you relying on another player to play their part. If I just gave this power to Tom with no price, no explanation, and no discussion outside the game, the players, including Tom, would spend their time trying to figure out how to tame this power, how to keep it. But that's not drama. That's min-maxing. Phoenix is way more powerful than Marvel Girl. She's so powerful, she renders the rest of the X-Men obsolete. And that's okay, because the author knows Dark Phoenix is coming. And Dark Phoenix is a problem to solve. That was the core of my discussion with Tom. I told him, no matter what, Nails' power could not be controlled. You know, maybe he could be cured, that's reasonable, but that kind of solution requires time and resources. It means research, and that was not on the table. Many people watching were disappointed the whole thing resolved itself in only a couple of episodes. They wanted the problem to grow over weeks and months. But as soon as the players feel like they're in control of the situation, if they felt like they could ignore the problem with Nails until they got back to civilization, if they felt like they had the time to do research and experiment, then the drama dies. Drama requires tension, and in this scenario, the tension is the ticking clock. Nails' power grows, his humanity fades. If you had more time, if you were in capital and you could see a powerful wizard, well, you might be able to cure him. But you do not have time, you do not have resources. You're going to have to do something desperate. That is drama, pushing the players past their comfort zone, where the only choices they have to make is which goblin to attack, and really forcing them to think outside the box. This isn't that different from just playing out a character's backstory. Lots of players enjoy making characters with dark secrets that will play out over the course of the campaign, which only the DM and the player know about. It's a big part of what makes the secondary world feel like a real place. Each of the players has the potential to know something about the world that the other players don't, just like the real world. As Tom played Nails' growing power and loss of humanity, I was able to sort of sit back and watch. This was amazing to me, as Tom was a completely new player, and I realized that what we're doing when we collaborate with a player to create some dramatic moment or arc is we're promoting the player to a sort of quasi-DM role. Tom, playing Omega Nails, has to react to the other players exactly the same way I would if I were playing an NPC. And this gets to the collaborative element of all role-playing. There is always, in every RPG session, an element of playing along, even if the players don't know it. There is an unspoken, or maybe spoken, agreement that the players will play along with whatever adventure the DM has ready within reason. In a sense, the players are already sort of acting as little mini DMs. They are not always only ever interested in what would my character do. They are also interested, even if they aren't thinking about it, in party cohesion and drama and keeping the flow of the adventure moving. It may seem radical or dangerous to bring a player more toward the DM side of the game, asking them to collaborate with you to create drama, but it should not seem radical. It is perfectly ordinary for a player to include hooks in their backstory the DM can use to create drama. What happens when the assassin who killed their parents shows up? In that scenario, the player definitely knows things about this new mysterious assassin that the other players don't know, which they may not reveal in the strict service of problem solving and overcoming the challenge. They may choose to reveal what they know about this enemy assassin when it best serves the narrative. So I say it's a very small leap from that, which is normal, to the player shifting even farther over to the DM side and collaborating to create a dramatic beat. You, the DM, take the player aside and pitch them on this dramatic arc. Your pitch is not just an idea, hey, it would be neat if we collaborated together to create some cool drama. It needs a structure. When we launched the chain, I wanted to start with a bang. So I busted out the same hook I used when I ran this campaign at Pandemic Studios for the Mercenaries design team. I took two of the players aside, in this case, Lars and Phil, the two players I thought would naturally gravitate toward the commander role. And I just asked them, hey, which of you is going to be the commander? They talked about it and they agreed on Phil. So I said, okay, Lars, here's my pitch. You're going to make a fake character, the commander, and Phil is going to be the lieutenant. Then in the first episode, your fake character is killed and Phil's lieutenant becomes commander. They loved that idea. The other players had no idea any of this was happening. This was an easy plot to play out because it was all going to happen in the first combat. I didn't really need Lars or Phil to do anything except play their characters. I told them, let me worry about how Lars's fake character dies. So they didn't have anything to do except play D&D normally. They didn't know about Relg. They didn't know Ajax was going to show up. All of their reactions to that were perfectly authentic. The setup with Nails was much more complex. I was lucky because Tom very much wanted to serve the drama. He wasn't interested in gaming the system. He was able to take the guidelines I set out and be creative within those boundaries. We talked a lot about what Nails could do. I gave him certain beats to hit, like detonating a junior officer, and we would talk about it. And then during the session, I'd message him to let him know now is the time. We talked about how his power was going to grow in stages and what the limits of his power were at each stage. Stage 1, you can cast your spells without using spell slots. Pretty straightforward, didn't require a lot of role playing from Tom. By the time he got to stage 3, his power was basically limitless. So we had this plan, certain moments, how his power would grow and what he would do with it. But when confronted by the other players, that was all Tom. It was up to him to play the part. He improvised stuff like being able to command the Somnium Tenebris with his mind. He invented the idea that he could just know where everything and everyone on the ship was. Meanwhile, I invented the idea that, like Dr. Manhattan, Nails could be in two places at once. I didn't tell Tom I was going to do that. He was as surprised as everyone else when Angel reported in and said they had won the battle against the Dwagar below decks because Nails was down there fireballing everyone. But Nails was here, some of the players said. Those moments where Tom is hearing about some crazy stuff his character did and didn't know about it are so unique to D&D. In that moment, Tom was still a player, still reacting to my nonsense, but instead of reacting in a manner designed to resolve drama, which is what the players are normally trying to do, he was reacting in a manner designed to increase it. Now, your first reaction may be, that takes putting a lot of trust in your players. Yes, that's the point. First of all, it might not work. Just because a player thinks it's a cool idea doesn't mean it will go off without a hitch. But this is D&D. It's not open heart surgery. There aren't lives on the line. If an idea excites you and you share it with a player and they're excited, that's reason enough to try it. And if it doesn't work, for any one of a million reasons, that doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It might work next time. I've never had a player not want to collaborate with me to create a moment. They are always excited and eager to try it. My friend Steve Howard ran a DC Heroes game in which I played a speedster, a Flash-type character named Mr. In-Between. It was set in Long Beach, and the players were each going to invent a member of a now-defunct superhero team. The team broke up years ago after the group's leader was murdered under mysterious circumstances. He asked each of us to tell him privately why our character was responsible for killing the group's leader. He would then pick which of our stories was the real reason. It was a great setup because it meant we each had to invent a character with a reason to kill our old leader, but only one of us, or maybe none of us, actually did it. Very Agatha Christie. I emailed Steve and said, I killed our old leader because my character is actually a robotic duplicate of the original Mr. In-Between. I was created by one of our old arch nemeses, placed on the team secretly, and no one knows what happened to the original Mr. In-Between. I bided my time until our leader was weak and alone, and I killed him. Steve loved that idea, but he said, no, you didn't kill him. You were nowhere near the place. You are a robotic duplicate of the original Mr. In-Between, and you were put on the team to kill the team's leader, but someone else beat you to the punch, and your programming didn't account for this. So you've spent the last 3 years continuing to be Mr. In-Between. You're in this limbo where the trigger you were created to pull cannot now ever be pulled. Infinite loop. We played for a couple of months. Some external threat, possibly related to the death of our old leader, has got the team back together. We don't exactly trust each other, but we all want to know the truth about what happened years ago. I enjoyed dropping these little hints into the game that my character wasn't human. I'd suggest logical but absurd solutions to some problems, and then, as the team got closer to the truth, the real Mr. In-Between showed up. He changed his identity, become another hero whom we'd met and dealt with, and in a critical moment, he pulled off his mask, revealing my face, confronting the heroes about who he was and who I was. This was an incredibly memorable moment. My friends and I still talk about it 20 years later, as I tried to convince them I was me, and the GM tried to convince them he was me. Like the problem with Nails, the players didn't know what to do. They were sort of lost at sea. They could no longer rely on their character sheets to solve the problem. They had to think and make a decision on imperfect data. That is drama. Steve and I had talked about this. This robot I was playing was actually a villain and therefore has enormous power, enough power to take on the entire group. He's pretending to be this other character and so is balanced with their power level. But if the ruse is ever discovered, he would drop the act and use all his power. He could kill the entire team. Role-playing in character, all of us arguing about who the real Mr. In-Between was memorable, but not as memorable as what happened when combat broke out, and my character revealed himself to be a robot in disguise. When initiative was called, the players thought they were going to watch me and this doppelganger fight. But in the middle of the combat, I turned on the heroes, and Steve and I traded character sheets. He gave me the PC version of my hero, and I gave him the robotic villain version of my hero. And I took over the role-playing, smoothly transitioning into making the same arguments and using the same dialogue Steve had been doing because I was now playing that character. How badass is this? Role-playing games, everyone. It's the most fun you can have with your brain. If you can get your players on your side, collaborating with you to create drama, then you can do almost anything. I'm not going to tell you this always plays out without a hitch. Sometimes it does, but you can't count on that. What plans of ours do go off without a hitch? To me, the surprises, the things I never thought of, like Sweet sacrificing himself to stop Nails because Phil really wanted to play a Githyanki, is what makes the game fun. But collaborating with a player to create a dramatic moment with a satisfying conclusion does take more work than normal DMing, because there are more moving parts. This is why I think this is advanced DMing. One of the reasons I wanted to open the Chain of Acheron campaign with some player collaboration. I wanted to show people the game can be a lot more than just the DM describes the challenge, the players try to solve it. We have the freedom to blur those lines in really interesting ways, but it requires some experience guiding characters and working with your players. I've never really done this with more than 1 or 2 players at a time. I think it's important that you limit the number of variables, the number of things that can go wrong, to 1 or maybe 2 of your players. Plus, doing it with all of your players would be weird. Who in that scenario is reacting authentically? Although, now that I think of it, I am reminded of one classic paranoia adventure. And it's rare that I do this more than once in a campaign, although the Chain of Acheron is an exception. I think the fear for some people is that once you've had a moment like this, how will the players know any given scenario isn't a setup with a player collaborating to create drama? Well, they don't. But this, I think, is more a problem for the audience watching a stream than the actual players. Since the God factor scenario with Nails, none of the players have ever questioned, Is this another one of those scenarios? There was a point at lunch with the whole group where I just explained, flat out, Tom is collaborating with me for this. The challenge is, how are the rest of you going to solve the problem of nails? I have no problem just explicitly stating the nature of a challenge in a very meta, how would the characters know that sense. Because the players are not their characters. And sometimes pulling the curtain back removes frustration while preserving drama. I can't tell you step by step how to do this because the solution is going to be totally unique to your scenario. But I've given you 3 examples: me and Nails, me and the commander of the chain, and Steve and I in his superhero game. Like a lot of my advice, just being aware this is possible is most of what you need. But remember that you and your candidate player can sit down, talk about what you want to happen, explore ideas, and then key certain moments to triggers. I'll text you when it's time for you to reveal yourself. Oh, I've also given you a 4th example if you remember.
Hail Orcus!
The DM keeping control of the triggers, it was up to Steve to decide when the real Mr. In-Between was going to confront us, means you're still in control of the pacing of the adventure, and that's important. Don't try this on your first time out. It's super common to want to do everything cool all in one go. But as you get to know your players and their characters, you'll come up with some cool ideas, and you'll know which of your players is the best candidate. It might not work. But if it does, I 100% guarantee you it will become one of the most talked about and remembered parts of your game. Thanks for watching, everybody. That is the player collaboration video, just one of the tricks I use to create drama and make the game memorable. We've taken a break from the Chain of Acheron. We've been playing in my friend Phil's game and streaming it live on Wednesday nights for the past 3 weeks. But next week, the Wednesday after this video goes up, we will be back to me being behind the screen, and we will continue with the exploration of Ringwell. If you like this video and you want to support this channel, we do have a Patreon. You can come by. I post my notes for my D&D campaign before we run on Wednesday nights. We've also got a store where you can pick up a new t-shirt designed by Tom Schmuck, and of course, Strongholds and Followers available in print and PDF. We are getting ready for the next Kickstarter. If you want an alert when the Kingdoms and Warfare Kickstarter goes live, there is a link in the doobly-doo. If you're looking for advice on running the game, we have a great and active Discord. There are links to all our social stuff in the doobly-doo. Until next time, peace out.